Every community has its own unique history. This history is, in part, the record of local events. It is also influenced by events in the larger area, in the state, in the nation, and even in foreign countries. The history of the Embreeville Bumpass Cove community in northeastern Tennessee serves as an example of how the larger events of American history have affected the lives of individual people and the community as a whole. Located in the rugged hills along the Washington-Unicoi County border, Embreeville has experienced periods of tremendous development and productivity, alternated with periods of economic stagnation. The influence of outside events upon the economic development of Embreeville in some ways reflects the economic history of the southern mountains. The cove, surrounded by Rich Mountain and Embreeville Mountain, is about 6 miles long and 2 miles wide. Bumpass Cove Creek flows northeast and drains into the Nolichucky River. The Cherokee Indians were the first to inhabit the area. They took advantage of the fresh water and forests which provided their livelihood. Artifacts remain where their villages stood close to the mouth of Bumpass Cove Creek. In the late 1760s, just prior to the American Revolution, the river valleys of Upper East Tennessee filled with white settlers who sought flat, fertile farmland. The area, which later became known as Embreeville, was especially attractive to prospective farmers. In 1780, Evan Embree, a Quaker farmer who settled in the Nolichucky Valley, described the land poetically in a letter to his uncle in South Carolina.
The land is good, here's lofty wood enough for any use, plenty of fruits, good herbs and roots the hills and valleys produce. The deserts here feeds many deer and turkeys every day, squirrels and hares, but savage bears are banished quite away. The weather's warm, the rivers swarm with many fish to fry, barley grows here, to make good beer to drink when we are dry.
In addition to bountiful vegetation and wildlife, the residents of Bumpass Cove soon discovered that the area was also rich in minerals. In the cove, they found deposits of both the iron they needed to make kettles, nails, and other household implements, and the lead they needed for bullets for their hunting rifles. One of the earliest written records of a lead mine in the area appears in a 1780 tax list. A man named William Collier was assessed with 350 acres in Bumpass Cove, including a lead mine. Local tradition tells us that bullets made from Bumpass Cove lead were fired against the British in 1780 at the Battle of Kings Mountain by John Severe's Over Mountain men. The local manufacture of iron was so important on the frontier that in 1794 the Southwest Territorial Council passed the following resolution.
Resolved that 14 of the principal artists belonging to any furnace for the manufacture of iron in this territory be exempted from military duty, who shall not be called into service in case of insurrection or invasion unless His Excellency the Governor shall deem their service necessary.
In 1812, William P. Chester paid $1 per acre for 260 acres of land on the south side of the Nolichucky River at the mouth of Bumpass Cove. Close to the bank of the river, he built a forge to reduce iron ore from the cove. Several years later, Chester transferred the same tract of land to Elijah and Elihu Embree for $4,500. Elihu and Elijah Embree were third-generation iron workers. Their grandfather, Moses Embree III, had served his apprenticeship as an iron worker in Pennsylvania in the late 1720s. The Embrees were active members of the Religious Society of Friends, commonly called Quakers. The stone house, which was built by Quaker stonemason Seth Smith in the 1780s, and in which both Elijah and Elihu Embree lived as children, still stands today, a few miles southeast of Jonesboro. Elihu Embree is best known for his connection with the early efforts to free slaves in Tennessee. In 1819, he published at Jonesboro the Manumission Intelligencer, a weekly newspaper, and later the Emancipator, a monthly publication. These were the first periodicals published in the United States devoted exclusively to the abolition of slavery. In 1811, the two Embree brothers purchased the Pactolus Iron Works in Sullivan County. There, they successfully operated an extensive iron manufacturing plant, including a furnace, a forge, and a nail factory. The brothers also acquired many acres in the Bumpass Cove area. In 1820, they reported to their father that their iron interests were worth more than $100,000. Elijah Embree continued the ironworks following Elihu's death in 1820. A furnace was built at nearby Clark's Creek in the 1830s to make pig iron and castings. The ore was mined at Bumpass Cove and hauled over the ridge 2½ miles by wagon to the furnace until it was shut down in 1841. Thomas Jefferson Wilson, a son-in-law of Elihu Embree, continued to work with Elijah for many years at the ironworks. Wilson kept the records for the company store. This was a complicated task because Embree's holdings included mines and a manufacturing plant employing many workers. In 1839, Embree sought additional capital. He entered into partnership with Robert L., John and William Blair, and 3 others to form the Washington Iron Manufacturing Company. The partnership, however, was dissolved in 1844, and upon Embree's death in 1846, the Blair brothers became sole proprietors. The Blairs foresaw an increasing demand for their wares and moved to take advantage of the opportunity. Renamed the Pleasant Valley Iron Works, the Blairs Company became the largest producer of iron in East Tennessee. The Embreeville-Bumpass Cove area was rich in the 3 resources needed for early iron manufacturing: extensive iron deposits, abundant forest, and a strong river for water power. Production of iron from crude ore followed 2 methods during this time. In a simple forge or bloomery, the ore was heated in a charcoal fire to a white hot plastic mass, then lifted directly to the anvil. A heavy water-powered hammer then drove the slag and other impurities from the iron. Repeated heating and hammering produced a very serviceable form of wrought iron. Cast iron was produced in furnaces, which were built of native stone. The ore was mixed with charcoal and limestone, and the mixture ignited. Great water-powered bellows forced cold air into the furnace as the melting iron separated from its impurities. The melted iron ran into molds and was allowed to cool. Local blacksmiths converted this iron into tools and other useful implements. The operation of such furnaces and forges required charcoal in large quantity. This was a sizable industry in itself, employing many men to cut timber and tend the fires to reduce the wood to charcoal. In 1861, the Confederacy became interested in the iron and lead mines for munitions. Duff Green, a politician and industrial promoter, acquired the Pleasant Valley Iron Works. Renamed the Confederate Iron Works, Duff Green's operation proved to be of great value in the East Tennessee campaigns. In 1864, the following appeared in a Jonesboro paper.
200 conscripts wanted. The above number of good, able-bodied men can be detailed for service at the ironworks of General Duff Green to make iron for the government by applying to me at Jonesboro, Tennessee. Teams and wagons also needed. Good wages paid. John W. Pierce.
The collapse of the Confederacy and the paralyzing effects of the Reconstruction period on all Southern industry spoiled Green's vision of a mining town accommodating 20,000 people. After the war, the mines reverted to the Blairs, and although iron production continued, it was at a reduced level. During the late 19th century, American industrialists began attempts to attract foreign capital. In 1890, a British company purchased the land from the Blairs and operated the mining operation under the name of Embreeville Freehold Land, Iron and Railway Company, Limited. The Embreeville Town Company, a companion organization, was created under English law to develop stores, banks, and other businesses to support the mining company. A town site was laid out just north of the furnace stack. Streets were graded and houses built for officials in an English style of architecture. The Southern Railway built a spur line from Johnson City to bring in coke for the new hot blast furnace. In 1892, the company employed 250 men and produced a daily output of 35 tons of high-grade iron. The financial panic of 1893 brought business to a standstill in the United States and abroad. The furnace again shut down and the property passed through various ownerships. Little iron ore was mined at this time. Without work in the mines, the people returned to farming. Joe Rogers, the son of Joseph and Rebecca Rogers, who was born in P.D. Huller in 1898, describes the farm he was raised on.
Well, it belonged to Henry Jackson. it was farm ground. All of it was farm ground. A lot of wood lands, you know, and stuff. And there's 296 acres of it. And he just ran it, you know, standing rent. I believe he paid $60 a year for it. And what we raised was, it was orange, you know. And we'd have cattle and hogs, chickens and everything. That went on a farm then, you know. And we just had to raise what we eat, you know.
The Embree Iron Company, created in 1903 by New York and Chicago interests, introduced hydraulic mining, but the operation was not successful, and in 1909 the fires were extinguished.
Well, back then, the iron ore mines shut down, you know. They shut down 1909. And from that to 13, when the zinc started to apply, they wasn't but a few here. Just the old settlers was about all the states who that carried it on, you know. And their boys, if they was old enough to get out and hunt them a job summers, go summers, off summers to work, well, some of them done that, you know. And then when the zinc mines started up in 1913, well, they just swarmed in like bees in a gun.
Zinc was mined with pick and shovel. The company hired a great number of workers. Boarding houses were built for the miners who lived out of the area.
They could go home on the weekend, well, they'd work, but they could go home and back that lived at Spot in Flag Ponds and in there, you know, and everything around. They just worked from everywhere. And the close ones, a lot of them would go in home and stay one night, you know, one day. And back, so they got back Monday morning to go to work. There wasn't nothing to ride, unless it'd be a horse or a mule.
Small houses of logs were also built to house workers and their families. This area in Embreeville became known as Pole Town. Joe Rogers was 17 when he went to work in the mines.
I went to work carrying water to the jig, was a jigging that zinc and picking rock out of it then, what I wasn't carrying water to drink, you know. And then I went from that to a mule skinner in the mines. They had a lot of tramroads and mules, you know. They had about 40 head of horses and mules. Of course, they shipped a lot of lump lead and lump zinc. It didn't need no cleaning, you know. They shipped it for years. But they still is running the washers, that fine stuff, you know, there. And they'd load it right there. They'd push it down, go put it through that set of rolls and everything, and they'd come down to just small, you know. And then it'd run over the magnet belts, and they'd get that orange, what orange was in it. And then they run that for some several years. And then quit that and just went to washing it good and crushing it. Crush it down, so it was about an inch or inch and a half probably, you know. And just then put it right to a big jar and got bone dry and went into that big vent then. They loaded it out of there right in the boxcar.
The company built a small track up to Peach Orchard to haul ore, men, and groceries from the company store.
Had a real store, and it's cheap. Well, they had to, you know, work men the way they did.
At first, paper coupons called scrip were used as a means of exchange at the company store, while later a lightweight metal coin called oogaloo was used.
Well, it was just a lightweight stuff, like loan-in or that, and you could trade it here at the store. You just go to the office and get what you want, $3, $4, or $5. They give it to you, and you take it down there at the store and trade. Whoever had to do, they'd trade it at the store there. Yeah.
The company issued a small numbered metal tag to each new employee. The company timekeeper checked the mines each day and asked each miner to call out his number. Miners also showed their tags to draw their pay. The Embree Iron Company also exploited the valuable timber in the cove.
And then the Embree Iron Company, when they started up there, they got a big sawmill. They got the cream of bunches of coal. Lord, they shipped hundreds and hundreds of boxcar loads of that.
So it was timber that was shipped out of the area then?
They just sawed it and never planed it or nothing, you know. They just sawed it and stacked it and let it dry out, sort of, you know. Or yeah, they had two settings up there. They had one up there at Holly Holler there with the zinc mill. And then they took it to Peach Orchard. And mined it plumb to the top of Rich Mountain. I mean, cut timber.
Mm-hmm.
They had big yellow poplars in there, I guess 4 foot over. Oh, it was a wonderful place here from 13 till, I'll say, about 30 or up in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
The ore went to getting scarce, you know.
Some of the miners working during these years were Bill Blevins, Clarence Jenkins, Ab Richardson, John McNabb, Roy Casey, Tom and Joe Rogers, and many others. By 1929, the area again was in a slump. Work was hard to find anywhere. Some mining continued under contract, particularly in the older mines from 1931 to 1935. Another metal, manganese, brought still another economic boom to the area. While earlier mining companies had known of deposits in Bumpass Cove, manganese ore was not mined until the mid-1930s. The threat of war in Europe increased the production of manganese, which was used to harden steel. Manganese miners used a gasoline-powered keystone churn drill using a 6-inch bit to locate ore deposits. The drill bit cut a core sample which showed the soil and rock composition underground. Manganese ore occurs in blanket formation on the land. Mining requires open pits with power shovels instead of underground tunnels. In 1939, the Bumpass Cove mines were the largest producers of metallurgical manganese in the United States. However, the ore available to power shovel methods was quickly exhausted. The war effort also encouraged an increase in zinc production. The Johnson City Press Chronicle on February 8, 1942, printed the following report.
The announcement by Elliott Wheeler, president of Embree Iron Company at Embreeville, Washington County, that the plant is preparing to mine zinc for war purposes indicated that this old enterprise is about to enter upon another of those spasmodic periods of activities that have marked its history from its beginning far back in another century.
In July 1943, the Embree Iron Company holdings in Bumpass Cove were sold to the Tennessee Zinc Company Incorporated of Embreeville. In 1952, Tri-State Mines, run by T.K. Lee of Waching Corporation, bought the rights to the mines.
Came here in 52.
Mm-hmm.
We built a plank for him out of pine poles and logs and things.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to a washer. They had a washer here, you know, big hand washer, steel washer. And then T.K. bought 2 more. And he just went into her there, wide open, steam, shoveling, high lip, blowing over trucks, everything. And he gutted it out for us. He gutted it all.
In 1959, T.E. Turner of Turner Mines leased the area and recovered some of the washer tailings. This manganese was shipped to Howard Fertilizer Company in Florida, where it was used for replenishing the minerally depleted soils of the Citrus Belt. In the late 1950s, property once owned by the company was put up for sale. This was the first time that many families could purchase property in their own community. Before this, they had rented their homes from the company. By 1961, mining had again come to a halt, and those who could find employment outside their community did so. The boom periods of economic activity appeared to be over, and Bumpass Cove might have remained quiet and inactive, but it did not. There was to be yet another industrial use of the old mine shafts and the land in the cove. In the 1970s, a controversy arose over this new use of the land, which propelled Bumpass Cove onto the front pages of newspapers, along with other communities across the country and around the world. On June 9, 1972, the Johnson City Press Chronicle reported a 5-year contract between Unicoi County and a company called the Bumpass Cove Environmental Control and Minerals Corporation. Most residents were not alarmed. The old mining sites had changed hands frequently in the past, and this company seemed like another in the long line of owners. But this company was not interested in mining. It wanted the old mines for a landfill. The newspaper story reported on the company's proposed activities. A high-ranking representative stressed that the landfill located in Bumpass Cove will be open to any individual in the county who wishes to transport solid waste to the site. Excluded from using the site are wholesale businesses, professional services, institutions, industries, and public utilities. In 1973, a year after the Bumpass Cove landfill site had opened, a few local residents began complaining about odors coming from the landfill. Both the Unicoi County Health Department at Irwin and state officials at Nashville received these complaints. One of the residents who was concerned was William Story.
When I became concerned individually was when they started hauling the waste in of a night, in the nighttime, from say 12 midnight till 2 and 3 in the morning. And I knew that there was some hazardous waste going in here, but I couldn't pinpoint it, or it's something you couldn't guarantee. But we knew that it was going in all along, but we just we had to wait till enough people got involved in it to really do anything about it,
In 1975, the landfill company installed an incinerator. A number of Bumpass Cove citizens became ill from the burning fumes. As a result, the Environmental Protection Agency banned burning at the site. The Johnson City Press-Chronicle reported on June 7, 1979, that the landfill had been listed by the Tennessee Department of Public Health as having possible hazardous waste materials buried there. The Environmental Protection Agency also listed the site as containing waste that might cause health problems. Until July 1979, only a small number of residents had voiced complaints about the landfill. On July 21st and 22nd, heavy rains caused flooding in the cove. Strong fumes from the landfill site affected the residents, and the area was partially evacuated. An informal organization, the Bumpass Cove Concerned Citizens, resulted from this incident. On July 23rd, local residents formed picket lines to stop the landfill trucks from making their way over the Bumpass Cove Creek Bridge. They were successful in stopping the trucks. A 3-ton limit was posted. The company trucks looked for an alternate route to the landfill site. They found another route on the Cemetery Road, and the dumping continued. Local citizens kept up their resistance, and eventually their harassment of the trucks and drivers brought an end to the hauling. Formal organization of the Bumpass Cove Citizens Group occurred in September 1979. One effort of this group has been to fight legally the possibility of further problems with the landfill. As of December 1979, the landfill company has chosen not to use the facility. An intensive survey done by the Tennessee Department of Health showed low concentration of PCBs, a very toxic chemical suspected of causing cancer. These were found in a groundwater sample taken at the Bumpass Cove Sanitary Landfill. Industries in our country produce large amounts of toxic substances as byproducts. No one has yet found a safe method of destroying or disposing of these poisonous waste. Residents of Embreeville, like people everywhere, want their community to be a good place to live. Not every community faces problems exactly like those in Embreeville, but as our society becomes more complex, the possibility of similar situations becomes greater. The residents of Embreeville and Bumpass Cove have found the strength and solidarity to face their problem by relying on their sense of community, a sense that is based in part on the history of their particular community.
My neighbors are kind, I love